Number 15. Deborah Kinsey. Imagine giving an interview to reporters, having just taken the life of your next-door neighbor. That's what 63-year-old Deborah Kinsey did after taking the life of her 64-year-old friend, Charlotte Nicholas. Kinsey called 911 and claimed she'd found her friend passed away, but it was later discovered that she'd taken her life with a screwdriver and took all of Nicholas's jewelry to sell it off.
Charlotte, and I didn't hear nothing, but I heard the TV going. So I opened her, she always left her door unlocked. So I opened her door and I walked in and called her name. So I walked in the kitchen and there was her body.
She'd been to a nearby pawn shop the same day of the event, wearing red-stained clothes. In the TV interview, Kinsey appears completely distraught, but text messages between the pair tell another story. Charlotte's fiancé also confirmed that Nicholas had been having problems with her neighbor. Kinsey was taken into custody and charged for her actions. She'll have a hard time launching her acting career from behind bars. Number 14. Edward Wayne Edwards. Once appearing on not one but two TV shows, Edward Wayne Edwards' infamy came not from his TV appearances, but from making the FBI's 10 Most Wanted list. Edwards appeared on To Tell the Truth in 1972 and What's My Line. It was before this To Tell the Truth appearance that Edwards was sought by the FBI. They caught him. He was taken into custody in Georgia in 1962. He'd been wanted for escaping from custody in 1955 and holding up gas stations for the cash.
Do we infer that you did not have a good relationship with your parents?
This is true.
In what way, number 3? In communications, as you indicate?
I was born an illegitimate child, so I never had a real mother to speak of.
For some strange reason, he was paroled only 5 years after his capture in '67, after which he went on to take 5 separate lives. Sometimes there's no justice in the justice system. Number 13. Grant Robicheaux. This man is not a great look at the stars of the TV show Online Dating Rituals of the American Male. The show's goal was to give women an inside look about the way men think in the dating game, especially online. The episode that aired in 2014 starring Grant William Robicheaux stated that the doctor was looking for love. On paper, Robicheaux was perfect, a doctor who once won the title of Orange County's most eligible bachelor also sought perfection in someone. He said on the show, "With dating online, if a girl's not perfect to start with, boom, you've got to be out. I'm not looking for a party girl. I'm looking for a wife to raise a family with." But as it would turn out, Robicheaux was far from perfect. In fact, he was a predator, and he wasn't looking for a wife so much as he was looking for prey. The 38-year-old wolf in sheep's clothing, along with his 31-year-old girlfriend, Carissa Laura Riley, stand accused of doing horrible things to unconscious women that they'd regularly pick up at bars. After searching Robicheaux's phone, police detectives believe they did this hundreds of times. These are some seriously sickening online dating rituals. The pair may face up to life in prison. Number 12. Chris Watts. Another actor who was later discovered to be a very scary person was the recent family annihilator Chris Watts. Watts appeared in an interview with a local news station when his wife and 2 young daughters went missing. In the interview, he claims Shannon Watts returned from a business trip at around 2 a.m., and when he left the house around 5:15 in the morning, she was still at home, but when her friend came by the house around noon, she and her daughters had disappeared. He appears not so much rattled about their disappearance as nervous. He gives an unusually flat performance. At times he smiles and laughs, crosses his arms. To put it simply, he appears disingenuous. And as it would turn out, there was a reason for this off-putting performance. Not long after, he confessed to have taken the lives of his pregnant wife and their 2 daughters. 3-year-old Celeste and 4-year-old Bella. He led the police to their bodies. Chris later claims that he only took Shannon's life in a rage after seeing her take the life of one of their daughters while the other lay lifeless, when he told her he wanted a divorce, but he failed a lie detector test on that one. On November 6, 2018, Chris Watts pled guilty to his actions, for which he received 5 consecutive life sentences. To many, this was not severe enough.
What would you like to tell your wife and your kids?
Shanann, Bella, Celeste, if you're out there, just come back. Like, if somebody has her, just please bring her back. I need to see everybody.
Number 11. A lifeless person is wrapped in a blue tarp that was recently found in Camptown, Pennsylvania, and a local news reporter is digging for details. She arranges for an interview with someone named Matthew Haverly, a man who happens to live across from the creek where the person was found. He acts completely surprised about the situation and disavows any knowledge of what could have transpired.
I had no clue. Sad to say that that's someone's either daughter, mother, whatever, both, child.
Hours later, police discovered that the person was, in fact, none other than Matthew's mother, which makes this last comment a terrible coincidence. If Matthew was aware beforehand that it was his mother floating in the creek, he gives absolutely no indication at the time. He ends the short interview by saying how the person was probably dumped in the creek out of town by hitmen.
It would be like a place where people from the city would want to put a body because most likely they wouldn't be found.
Police investigators don't buy this explanation one bit. They raid his property, and in his shed they find the same blue tarp that his mother's body was wrapped in. As of this date, he has been charged with a capital offense but not yet convicted. If he is found guilty, then this means out of sheer coincidence, the reporter had unknowingly scheduled an interview with the very same man who had taken his mother's life not too long ago. She may very well have been standing just a few feet away from a calm and collected psycho without realizing it. Number 10. Jonathan Schmitz. In 1995, the Jenny Jones Show featured 2 men. One, Jonathan Schmitz, oblivious to what was about to go down, and the other, Scott Amador, a man who had a crush on Schmitz. When Amador's crush was unveiled, Schmitz seemingly took it in stride, saying he was completely hetero. Although likely a disappointment to Scott, the incident should have ended there, but it didn't. Only 3 days later, and Schmitz would come face to face with Amador again, this time to take his life. Amador had left a note on his door, and in a rage, Schmitz took his life, telling police it was because of the humiliation he'd experienced on the Jenny Jones Show. The case's prosecutor, Richard Thompson, highlighted the upset the show had caused Schmitz, saying, "What you are seeing on the tape is a 24-year-old man facing the studio audience and the camera with what I consider to be an ambush. It's like a Roman circus where the audience gives a thumbs up or thumbs down to everything that is going on."
Did you think Donna had the crush on you?
Did I? No, we're good friends.
Well, guess what? It's Scott that has the crush on you.
You lied to me.
The producers of Jenny Jones were found liable and were forced to pay Amador's family $25 million. Schmitz, of course, was found guilty and sentenced to 25 to 50 years behind bars in 1999 after a mistrial. Number 9. Brian Hawkins. Imagine living 25 years with the darkest sin never letting up on your conscience, taking someone's life. That's what happened to Brian Hawkins, who was involved in taking the life of 19-year-old Frankie McAllister in 1993. The senseless event ended up in the infinite pile of cold cases that haunt those family members who live on. The case likely would have remained unsolved had it not been for Hawkins' live on-air confession. Hawkins couldn't take the guilt anymore, so he entered a local TV station, KRCR, and told reporters what he'd done.
"I'm going to turn myself in next door at the sheriff's department."
Hawkins said he would turn himself into the police next door after his confession, but before he did, he explained that there were two accomplices, siblings Curtis and Shanna Culver. He said that life had been an absolute horror and a nightmare since the event. Following the interview, he did as he said he would, turn himself into police investigators at Shasta County Sheriff's Office. He was charged for his actions along with the Culver siblings. The interview was held from airing until after Hawkins had turned himself in. He told police that he'd also contacted McAllister's family to seek redemption, but the father had passed away by the time he got the courage to go visit. Number 8. Sefer Colin Ak. There are some game show contestants who are psychos posing as normal people, and then there are those who confess to doing horrible things like it's no big deal. That's what happened on this Turkish dating show, Luck of the Draw, when 62-year-old Sefer Colin Ak appeared as a contestant, describing himself as an honest person looking for a new wife. Later on in the show, however, he surprised the audience and the TV host by confessing to not one but taking 2 lives. Well, he said he was honest. He had taken the lives of his first wife and his lover. The motives: Colin Ak said he took the life of his wife because of her irritating behavior, and he took his lover's life because he believed she was a gold digger. He'd been married to his first wife, Vadim, at 17, and he became jealous of her alleged interest in another man. He served only 4.5 years of his 13-year sentence. Colin Ak said he'd served time for taking his lover's life too, but had been let go early under an amnesty program. Although the lack of justice in this one is insane, one thing is clear: the female guest on this episode of Luck of the Draw had no luck at all. Number 7. Brian Romero Liva. A show entitled The Value of Truth was sure to get someone in trouble. When the reality confession show premiered in Peru, The Truth would get its contestant, Ruth Sanchez, lifeless. 19-year-old Sanchez appeared on The Value of Truth alongside her parents and her boyfriend, Brian Romero Liva. The show involved intrusion into the personal lives of contestants in front of a live audience, as well as friends and family. The questions were at first not so difficult to answer, but they became more and more humiliating as the prize money increased. On the show, Sanchez confessed that she'd accepted money for services twice at the nightclub she worked at. Admittedly, a surprising confession to make to your parents and your partner. It certainly wasn't worthy of losing your life, but that's how Romero dealt with his ex-girlfriend. Soon after her appearance on the reality show, Sanchez disappeared. After being questioned by police, Romero led them to her body, which he'd hid in a well. She'd been lifeless for some time. One of Sanchez's friends told police that Sanchez hadn't even been dating Romero when he appeared on the show with her. She paid him for his time. However, police believe Romero was after the money Sanchez had won, which was 15,000 solé, or $5,700, nearly 10 times the average monthly salary in Peru. Number 6. Rodney Alcala. Before Rodney Alcala was convicted of doing horrible things and taking lives in the 70s, he was a game show contestant on the ABC favorite The Dating Game. Alcala appeared on the game show in 1978, where he was introduced by the host of the show, Jim Lang, as a successful photographer. Although his competition on the show, actor Jed Mills, said Alcala was strange and with bizarre opinions, that didn't stop the man from beating out Mills and winning a date with Cheryl Bradshaw. Bradshaw, however, later refused to accept the date as she found Alcala creepy.
Come on, over here.
In reality, many were lured to Alcala's apartment under the guise that he was a professional fashion photographer, wanting to build his portfolio. Some of these subjects ended up getting their lives taken in his apartment. Before he was accepted on the game show, he had taken 5 lives, 2 in New York and 3 in California, After the show, he committed 2 more, and these are only the events he was convicted of. There could have been many, many more. Number 5. Ralph Panits. The Jerry Springer Show was known for wild and dramatic antics. The headline for this episode read, Eleanor says her husband's ex-wife Nancy won't take no for an answer. Nancy has shaken them so severely that they had to go into hiding. Today, Nancy will learn that her ex-husband is actually married to Eleanor. Nancy Campbell Panits appeared on the show at the request of her ex-husband Ralph. The former couple had had a rocky relationship, and Nancy believed that he was coming back to her for good this time, but the surprise must have torn into her when she was labeled a jealous, jilted stalker. And shamed by the audience, Ralph and Eleanor then announced their marriage. When Springer told Nancy that Ralph didn't want to be with her, she replied that this was fine and left the stage. The next time she would appear on TV would be as a news headline. Nancy was found passed away on her kitchen floor in Sarasota, mere hours after the episode screened. The prime suspects, Ralph and Eleanor. Eleanor was not charged, but Panits was. He pleaded innocent. Unfortunately, the evidence suggested otherwise. His DNA was found under Nancy's fingernail. He was convicted in 2002 and sentenced to life behind bars. Number 4. Stephen Port. So many master chef and cooking shows. I suppose it would only be a matter of time before one of those chefs would be accused of spiking their food. 40-year-old Stephen Port appeared on the show Celebrity MasterChef. He was filmed helping EastEnders star Emma Barton make meatballs, wearing chef's clothes, a blonde toupee, and smiling for the camera. Unbeknownst to everyone on the show, Port had a habit of taking lives. In 2016, he was charged with taking the lives of 4 men over the course of 15 months. Port had met these men on the dating app Grindr. In one of the cases, it appears as though Port tried to frame one of the peoples whose lives he had taken for taking the life of another. In 21-year-old Whitworth's hand, a note had been placed that read, "I can't go on anymore, I took the life of my friend Gabriel." Port had taken Gabriel's life before Whitworth's. Framing someone for taking a life, you'll see later on in this list, that's not unusual. Number 3. Louie William Bill Conrad Jr. A show like Dateline's To Catch a Predator was bound to catch, well, predators. But one surprise catch was Louie William Bill Conrad Jr., Texas's former assistant district attorney. Posing as 13-year-old Luke, the team was chatting with the assistant district attorney, who was posing as someone much younger, a 19-year-old university student. After the team and Dateline got Conrad on the phone with an actor, Conrad suddenly stopped responding to calls and messages, and content began disappearing from Conrad's fake MySpace page.
So what's going on with you?
Not anything. What are you doing?
Nothing. Just sitting around, pretty bored.
I'm sorry.
Well, are you going to come over?
Is it okay?
It was time for police to step in. A search warrant was sought, a SWAT team was called in, and tactical entry was performed. Conrad was found in a hallway where he said, "I'm not going to hurt anyone," before taking his own life. Dateline found itself in hot water after the incident. Afterwards, raw footage contradicted statements made by Dateline, in which they denied collusion with law enforcement. Do you think To Catch a Predator was in the wrong? Number 2. Ryan Jenkins. Jasmine Fior was a model whose body was found stuffed into a suitcase on August 15, 2009. The only suspect, former reality TV show contestant and Fior's husband, 32-year-old Ryan Alexander Jenkins. After making a run for it, he was found a little over a week later passed away in his hotel room in Hope, British Columbia, Canada. What went down? Jenkins had just finished filming Megan Wants a Millionaire. He met Fiore at a Las Vegas casino, and 2 days after they met, they married at the Little White Wedding Chapel. But it was an unhappy marriage. Jenkins reported Fiore missing, probably thinking he'd get away with his actions. But his suspicious activity thereafter, i.e. fleeing to Canada, revealed that he may not be as innocent as he claimed. Although he did manage to elude authorities who were on the lookout for him at the Canada-US border, he later took his life at the hotel. Before we get to number 1, my name is Chills and I hope you're enjoying my narration. If you're curious about what I look like in real life, then go to my Instagram at DylanIsChillinYT and tap that follow button to find out. It's a proven fact that generosity makes you a happier person, so if you're generous enough to hit that subscribe button and the bell beside it, then thank you. This way, you'll be notified of the new video we upload every Tuesday. Number 1, John Cooper. When retired, Chief Superintendent Steve Wilkins tracked down an old game show episode of Bullseye. He knew he had the final piece of the puzzle. John Cooper was the man he'd been looking for all along. The man had been a suspect of 4 passings since the 90s. Those of Richard and Helen Thomas and Peter and Gwenda Dixon. The footage, which was tracked down by Wilkins and ITV presenter Jonathan Hill, resulted in the man's conviction. The episode from 1989 was discovered in a library in Leeds in 2009. The episode was filmed just 1 month before the Dixons were found passed away on a coastal path while on holiday. And only 4 years earlier, in 1985, millionaire farmer Richard and his sister Helen were found passed away at their manor. When Steve Wilkins watched the clip, he was amazed. In his own words, it was Cooper, bold as brass, smiling and joking on national television, having almost certainly taken 2 lives. In the video clip, Cooper also expressed knowledge about the area where the Dixons were found when being interviewed by the game show host. And when Cooper lost the game, forget it. Wilkins said he looked to the camera with a stare that said it all. A very scary, disturbing man accidentally shown on live TV. Thanks for checking out this video. Be sure to subscribe because we upload new countdowns every Tuesday and Saturday. Or if you're still not convinced, here are some of our other videos that I think you'd like. Enjoy!